welcome the next speaker, Monica Posada. Are you there, Monica? Yes. And Monica is probably going to tell us a lot more about risk regulation and public sector with API management.
Exactly.
So I have to say buongiorno and benvenuto, or hopefully
that's perfectly fine. You can also, I mean, I'm Spanish, so buenos días, bienvenida.
That would work better. I thought you are just so much in Italy that
I live. But, I would love to be able to say it in Suomi, but not my strength. My strongest.
Päivää, tervetuloa, and you always put something in your emails in Finnish, so that's why I wanted to return some of it. Okay, that's but lovely. It's time for your presentation, so I hope the slides are ready, and off you go.
You can see the slides, can you?
I think Fabio needs to make some magic happen now.
There we go.
Now I can see.
Thank you very much, Mayuka, Megdi. A pleasure to be here. Good morning to everybody. Well, I have quite a challenge today to speak after about APIs after Megdi and Mayuka indeed. So I can only compliment their wonderful speeches by providing the European perspective of the relevance of APIs in the context of one of the current priorities of Europe, which is to have an Europe fit for the digital age. So to achieve this goal, Europe needs to become a strong, competitive, resilient, and sustainable digital actor. APIs will be functional in the transformational process as they are the connecting nodes of the digital issue. So first thing first, happy birthday, happy 10th anniversary to API Days conferences indeed. I wish, see?
Monica, small thing before you continue. We are seeing a lot of black screen. There's something with the sharing. Can you make it somehow more full screen? Well, at least now it's better. It's cutting a little bit of there are some black things on top and bottom. Yeah, now it's better if you can just put that right.
Yeah, but you cannot see the wait a minute.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, there's something with it. Yes.
Try to make it view one, not 2 pages, but single
sorry,
page.
Guys, about the technical thing. Well, I think that's the best that we can do in this time. So really getting better. Okay, let's go with that. And
perfect. Sorry about this. I couldn't. I thought that you were seeing a full page indeed, so full screen. So again. The important things first, happy 10th anniversary to API Days conferences. Indeed, I wish you the same success for at least yet another decade. It has been a pleasure and an honor to collaborate with you in organizing very fruitful events over the course of the last 4 years. We have done workshops, we have done public sector tracks, and we have tackled a great variety of topics, such as technical essentials needed to innovate the API infrastructures in the public sector, what are APIs in the context of the current European legal framework, what's the role of APIs in coordinating the public and private digital interface. And most of all, our collaboration has been a very nice opportunity to create spaces that has fostered the dialogue among API practitioners in the public and the private sector together with decision makers. So thanks again and happy anniversary. So then, since I haven't yet introduced myself and know the organization I represent, so my name is Monica Posada Sanchez. I am a research project leader at the Digital Economy Unit of the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And for those of you who don't know, the GRC is the knowledge service of the European Commission, which basically means that we provide policymakers scientific and technical evidence on the relevance, on the European relevant issues to facilitate decision making. More specifically, the work that my team does focuses on the analysis of strategic API essentials that ensure creating a robust, competitive, inclusive digital tissue. So let's get to the substance of the presentation today. So indeed, I beg your pardon. Of course, you all know what an API is, but as a researcher, I can have slides with no literature references. So here you have Sneer's definition of API back from 1996, on which he defines that an API is a documented interface that facilitates the connection of ICT components. But what this definition is missing is that by allowing this connection between systems, it intrinsically allows the connection of different actors and even things. And this links directly with the topic of this conference. So API ecosystems, how to connect the digital, the physical and the digital. What makes APIs relevant in the context of the European context? So APIs are the technical and coordination enablers of digital interactions, and most of all for three characteristics. So they are connectors that enable data sharing and data access, so supply and demand of data and services. It's a boundary that defines what can be accessed by whom, how, and under which conditions. And they are also the connecting nodes of digital ecosystems. And actually, by integrating the different components and coordinating their behavior, we can innovate and foster innovation within sectors and across sectors. And we have found plenty of evidences of that. So in a nutshell, the API relevance in the European context is that APIs are ecosystem facilitators, do have a say in data value distribution and the data governance. So in a broader extent, APIs do not only affect the European data strategy, it also supports other fundamental pillars of the entire European digital strategy. And the reason is because they are the connective nodes of data-driven systems. So, for instance, in the artificial intelligence pillar, APIs enable the functioning of AI. They also enable the access to the functionality. They also allow the control of the use of these functionalities. In the context of the European data strategy, we indeed have APIs enable the data access and its monitoring. They enable data sharing and the data value distribution by tuning who can access what and under which conditions. Also, very important aspect that Megdi mentioned, and it is very timely right now, is the fact that APIs are door to ICT infrastructures. And certainly the weakest, if you don't pay attention to the security of your APIs, you may open vulnerabilities on your entire ICT infrastructure. So in the current situation that we unfortunately have with the Ukrainian invasion by Putin, it's a really complicated, so it's very timely, this topic indeed. Another pillar of the European digital strategy is the industrial strategy. And in this pillar, APIs enable the integration of different players within sectors and across sectors. And that's an important an essential point for fostering innovation in Europe. So all these aspects are currently tackled by European policymakers in order to try to get the what's important to what policy instruments can be used to foster the development of Europe as an important, strong, robust and sustainable actor in the global arena. So in a nutshell, why we consider that APIs are relevant for policy support, because they are enablers of data sharing, data access and control, because they dictate the conditions of the transaction between different actors, because the APIs connect actors in digital environments, and the robustness of the entire digital chains require and call for systemic coordination, and the stability of the entire digital ecosystem will depend on this systemic coordination and of legal, technical aspects of the interconnection of systems and actors. Also, indeed, given that the APIs are tweaking and modulating the access to the data, this implies that somehow they can also modulate the data value distribution, and therefore it needs to be monitored. And of course, there is no need to hamper the evolution of technologies with unnecessary regulation, but it's certainly necessary to raise awareness about what kind of mechanisms can monitor for and contain potential abuses of technologies and the power that they generate in the digital era. So over the course of the last 4 years, the API team in the digital economy unit has published a number of publications. These publications include, for instance, the most recent one is a policy brief on the role of APIs in data governance and digital coordination. We have a Science for Policy report about the role of APIs in the digital transformation of governments. Several technical reports that, for instance, include the proposal of a framework of adoption of APIs for the public sector, that also has a self-assessment tool that helps organizations to assess their API maturity, the maturity of their API infrastructure, and several other scientific publications. To give some highlights on the main results of our work, we include regarding what are the benefits and opportunities that we understood from the adoption of APIs in the public sector. We can mention that they improve we found evidences of the improvement of access to public data and functionality, the fostering of the innovation in the public sector, that there were evidence of efficiency gains, such as reduction of cost, the improvement of internal processes in digital services, the enhancing of the reporting flows in government procedures. Also, the fact that the APIs enable the creation of digital ecosystems, so that the boundaries between the public sector and the private sector and the citizens blur a little bit, and which is very needed to make governments evolve to the current digital era. Also, there were some opportunities that we found evidences. So, for instance, API systems can stimulate entrepreneurship. Some firms can reduce the cost of establishing and running businesses. some of the interactions and the connections between actors have yielded profits in external stakeholders. And also we found evidences of innovative financing mechanisms that are happening. We also gather some evidences of the challenges that public sector has when adopting APIs in their infrastructures in a coherent manner. So we made a large study of evaluating the good practices of the adoption of APIs in every kind of organizations, and we ended up proposing a framework for adoption that was clustering the actions to take at different levels, so a strategy, tactical, and operational level. Then we have coming publications that will arrive very soon in the early next quarter of this year. The first one is the API strategy essentials for the public sector innovation, on which we will try to unveil what are the technical, legal, and coordination configurations that are needed to build up robust, trustful, competitive, fair, and sustainable digital environments that include the public sector. We do it both, looking at both the organizational perspective, and so we are looking at the technical aspects of how API should be managed, how to increase the discoverability of the API, the external facing, the security, traceability of actions. And we also look at it from a systemic perspective. No? So what, how this technical infrastructure can be improved so that the system, the entire system, becomes more robust and profitable for everyone in Europe. And really do that looking at analyzing the legal framework that applies to APIs, and trying to identify potential gaps or problems that are hindering the opportunities that are there if done properly. And also we try to understand what are the coordination models that make it easier and work smoothly and have a profitable and for everyone digital change. So then we have another publication that will be a technical report that we have done analyzing the terms of services of over 4,000 APIs. And in there we will deep dive into aspects of how APIs currently tackle the legal coordination aspects of digital interactions empirically. So we will say what we have seen is the current state of what is going on. We have some already preliminary results on what we have seen, that there are structural commonalities on the legal on these terms of services, but still the big players have a little bit adopted different strategies than the rest because they have multi-layer terms of services. We've seen that 75% of the terms are defined not for the API itself, but for the services that they are that are built on top of them. So the applications that are consuming them, and maybe there we the fact that these APIs are the terms of services of these APIs are defined for the entire service. It's a little bit restrictive, and maybe there's missed opportunities to think about these APIs as potential providers of services that can generate new data value chains. We've also seen that, for instance, 40% of the documents declare total exclusion of liability, which is rather a number. And also something that caught our attention is that almost, 36% of the documents declare unbalanced termination conditions, meaning that they say that they can stop the service at any time without any responsibility. And if we think about in a systemic way, if one of the nodes stops and do not give any, there will be discontinuities on the value chains that this service is providing to. So this might generate some instability, and this is not good for economic for performing a digital single market. So all in all, we have all our reports, the publications, all the events that we have generated with some narrative on them and some summaries. We also include tools and data on our APIs for digital transformation community that we have hosted in the Join Up platform of the European Commission. I can only invite you to join in and stay tuned for our new publications if you are interested on these topics. And yeah, I think that my time is off, so I'm open to any questions if anyone has.
Sorry, yes, unmuting myself. Yeah, you actually have a few more minutes, so no worries. But I think we can have a good conversation. So there are so many questions and discussions going in the chat. So, but there is one for you right now. Hulk wants to know, when will statistical data regarding the use of PSD2 APIs become available?
Statistics about? Sorry, I cannot see the
open banking.
That would be so. It will be super interesting for us to get our hands on this data. It will be absolutely great, but of course, at the moment, this is not happening. They might. So the conclusions of our policy brief goes in that direction. So. For us to understand how different sectors work and what is their evolution, it will be great to get access to this kind of information so that we can see and monitor the evolution and the practices, and that everything is going well and there is no abuse of asymmetric information power. At the moment, this information is rather is kept in different actors of the digital chain. So we have the TPPs, we have the banks, we have the and at the moment, at least that I am aware of, there is no not data set that contains the entire data. But if I'm not wrong, actually Apidays have done a report and they have annual reviews on it, on the evolution of the API market of the
that's the API landscape, and
yes.
And then I think there's also something around the fintech
exactly,
API
fintech
being done. Yeah, so obviously around the London event, for example, there's a lot of
yes.
Focus on fintechs, and then I think I've seen Mark Boyd or someone else.
See, Mark Boyd, so collaborate with us
around that. Yeah.
No, there's also a number. There is also a number of places where there is gathering of that data in the fintech, for instance. But fintech is the sectorial, the most evolved sector in the API adoption at large. So
that's actually kind of a segue to what I was going to ask next. And by the way, audience, if you have any questions or comments, put them on the chat. But when you have looked at all these APIs, both in public and private sector, so I know that we discussed this before this event, that what's happening around Europe and in different places, and we even have a few speakers from different countries from the public sector presenting their results. But what do you say? Is there like a common situation across all the countries or all the kind of public sector areas, or is it very dispersed?
It's uneven. It's uneven. So our landscape analysis of the adoption of in the public sector, which was our most concrete example, is uneven. But also in the private sector, we see that the fintech is very advanced, and others are much not so coordinated. They haven't. The insurance sector is also getting into the fintech, but of course they had. Former relationships already. So the ecosystems were created before, and now they are just digitalized. But we will see these more, and actually the creation of data spaces is going into this direction. There is going to be an urban data spaces where the solutions that the different cities or smart communities, as they call it in the European jargon, will be showcasting their samples, and APIs play an important role on them, and we will, we see that the thing that these communities that will be created around the data ecosystems, the data spaces, we will see that it's aiming at creating all these ecosystems and relationships, and that little by little they will evolve into something bigger. We have seen some ecosystems created, and we will have a speaker later, as you know, in regions such as the region of Lombardy, where they have conceptualized the concept of digital ecosystems through API. So they're connecting the main. The foundation of the ecosystems are the APIs, and they have developed a very nice and evolved ecosystem vision of how the regional governments will digitally evolve. Also, twin initiatives in cities that are also fit by the connection of APIs. That connect the physical infrastructure, the software infrastructure, and even the human infrastructure, so the citizens. So APIs are already there, and will become more and more. I mean, there is time for the evolution of this. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting that it's like not just one public sector and one, banking, but inside of those are so many different nuanced kind of sub-industries that, and even the same banks and even the same public sector organizations, which might have great APIs inside of them. It is like open banking is one ecosystem, but there are so many others, and in public sector also there are like, everything from utilities to social sector to healthcare to everything else, and they are impacted by the kind of private and public interaction with APIs. And I think that makes the scene very interesting, and there's a lot of things happening in those different areas.
I mean, on the last publications that we are busy with now, another very important aspect that we will see that we are deep diving currently is on the coordination, on how these relationships happen between different kinds of let's call it agents. So what we have seen is already some examples of how government institutions create relationship with the big tech companies. And it is super interesting to see how these relationships evolve, and the challenges that they have at the beginning, and this dialogue that needs to be it's taking place now. So because there is some.
And if you want to hear, for the audience, if you want to hear more about the public sector cases and ecosystems, by the way, there's on stage 2 after the break, there will be a Finnish case for ecosystem and platform around geospatial data, and then there will be job-related APIs from the Swedish API winners, and then the Lombardy case, and then we have the ideation session. So it's going to be interesting, and there's going to be some great talks on stage 1 too. So Matt Beal has a very simple question for you in the comments, but since I'm estimating that would take so much time that we don't have time for answering that, then you might pick up Matt's question from there. So do we need more or less regulation in the API space? So I will leave you to answer that maybe in the chat.
I have a very quick question on it. So PSD2 has no direct mention to APIs, but has been absolutely the commonality of its uptake. So whether we need to regulate or not, I don't think that the API needs a regulation on itself. This maybe is a personal opinion, but what I think it's that APIs will be fundamental to, as I said before, to monitor what is happening and to react in case is necessary. So if there is any abuse of power because certain actor is becoming too powerful and it's abusing its power to the detriment of the rest of the societal actors, then APIs will play a role, but on the monitoring and so our intention is to raise the awareness that APIs are tools that enable this control and to the monitoring and to raise aware of what you can get from it. Whether you need to regulate it or not, I think it's...
it is a very wide question. And as I said to the UK government when they are asking that, it depends on what kind of policy and public sector do you actually, as society, you want to drive. So with that, I expect a frequent comment chain in the chat. And now it's time for break. And remember, guys, to join in the Partner Village, and there's a treasure hunt, and there are some great speakers after the break. So thank you, Monica, for joining us.
Thank you very much.